Love isn't just about passion. It's not about the heart-pounding moments in the beginning or the grand gestures that fade over time. True love is about showing up through the storms, through the silence, through the sacrifices. This is the story of Anna and Daniel. Two souls who seemed like opposites, yet built something unshakable. It all started on a crisp autumn afternoon, the air tinged with the scent of falling leaves. Inside the grand old university library, Anna sat curled in a chair, her nose buried in a poetry book. The words spoke to her in ways she could never fully explain. Across the room, Daniel sat at a long wooden table, his posture straight, his pen moving swiftly across a page as he took meticulous notes. Anna's gaze lingered on him. She had seen him before, always focused, always serious, never distracted. She found it fascinating. On impulse, she stood up and walked over. Lightly tapping the edge of his book, she smirked. "You study like the fate of the world depends on it." Daniel looked up, momentarily startled by the interruption. His dark eyes flickered with something unreadable before he composed himself. "Some of us prefer preparation over improvisation." Anna tilted her head. "And some of us think life is better when you actually experience it." He sighed, but there was something in his expression. A flicker of amusement, maybe? She wasn't sure. And just like that, their lives became entangled. Their friendship was an unlikely one. Anna was warm, expressive, always living in the moment. Daniel was measured, logical, always looking ahead. Where she was led by her heart, he was guided by reason. And yet something kept pulling them together. Over time, the tension between them shifted into something deeper. It wasn't an immediate, fiery romance. It was a slow burn, a bond that formed piece by piece. One evening, as they walked across campus, Anna reached for his hand. "Do you ever stop and just feel the moment?" Daniel hesitated. He had never thought about it before. Life to him was about structure, about planning, about control. But here, standing beside her, feeling the crisp autumn air and the distant hum of students laughing nearby, he found himself doing exactly what she asked. He exhaled slowly. "I guess I do now." Anna smiled, squeezing his fingers. That was the moment she knew. He might never be as expressive as her, but he was trying, and that meant everything. By the time they graduated, they were inseparable. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was steady. Daniel proposed on a quiet winter evening, slipping the ring into Anna's hand rather than making a grand speech. Anna laughed. "You really don't do big romantic gestures, do you?" He smirked. "I thought you knew that by now." She shook her head, slipping the ring onto her finger. "I don't need grand gestures, Daniel. I just need you." And that was enough. Their first few years of marriage were filled with the excitement of new beginnings. They bought a small house, nothing extravagant, just cozy and full of character. Anna filled it with warmth, with plants, with art, while Daniel ensured they had a budget for everything. Life was good, until it wasn't. One evening, Anna sat at the dinner table, food growing cold. Daniel walked in late, exhausted. He loosened his tie and barely looked at her before sinking into the chair. "You forgot again," she said softly. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Anna, I'm trying to build something for us. Can't you see that?" She swallowed hard. "And I'm trying to hold us together." A heavy silence settled between them. It was their first real fight, not over something big, but over the small, unnoticed things that start to pull at the seams of a relationship. Daniel wasn't unkind. He wasn't cruel, but he was distant, and Anna felt it. And then came the storm that nearly broke them. Anna sat in the dim bathroom, staring at the test results in her hands. Her breath caught in her throat. A baby. Their baby. She imagined how she'd tell Daniel. Maybe over dinner, maybe with a small, sentimental gift. She knew he wasn't overly expressive, but she also knew this would mean everything to him. But before she could share the news, life took it away. A sharp pain, a trip to the hospital, and then silence. Daniel stood beside her hospital bed, watching as she curled into herself, eyes vacant. He didn't know what to say. He wanted to fix it, to make it better, but this wasn't something he could control. One night, she finally broke. "Just hold me, Daniel, please." And for the first time in years, he did. No words, no logic, no plans. Just warmth, just presence. That moment mended something, but life wasn't finished testing them. Years later, another hardship struck. Daniel's company collapsed overnight. The financial stability he had spent years building, gone. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. He had failed. Anna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out." His voice was hollow. "I don't know how." She knelt beside him. "You don't have to know. That's why we're in this together." And just like she had leaned on him in her darkest moment, he leaned on her now. They rebuilt, slowly, together. Decades passed, their hair streaked with silver. Their home, once filled with the chaos of youth, settled into quiet companionship. Their love remained, not in grand gestures, but in the little things. His hand on the small of her back, her tea waiting for him on the counter, the way they knew each other's thoughts without speaking. Until the day Anna fell ill. She grew weaker. The house that once echoed with laughter became quieter. But Daniel never left her side. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in golden crimson, she reached for his hand. "Remember when I asked if you ever stopped to feel the moment?" His throat tightened. He nodded. She smiled faintly. This is a moment worth feeling." And for the first time in his life, Daniel cried. Now in the present, he sits beside her hospital bed, their old photograph in his hands. Two young lovers standing against the tide of time. His voice is steady. Love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up. Every day. Anna's fingers tighten around his one last time, and in that final moment, their love stands unbroken.